Hi everyone. You know what? It's November and the Read-A-Thons, oh my gosh, they're out of control. So here's my TBR, which is just a nod to the November Read-A-Thons. So it is November and the Read-A-Thon season has begun in earnest. I think everybody is trying to rush in and hope that by putting all the Read-A-Thons, we're going to get cooler weather, more cozy, snuggle up. And my AC just kicked on. Ugh. Anyway, it is November of 2021 and I went out today and did a simple little Google search or YouTube search for Read-A-Thons, because a lot of the people that I watch, that I subscribe to, have been already talking about their November Read-A-Thons 2 weeks ago, because we're in Read-A-Thon season. It starts like in September and goes crazy until about May, and then I notice we kind of get laid back about our readings, maybe not so earnest and needing so much direction. But we are in reading season just because hopefully this weather turns and really makes everybody want to buckle down and start reading some great books. And what better way through Read-A-Thons? Now, I say that, and that's the whole point of the word of nod to the November Read-A-Thons, because for me, I don't read enough in a month to ever complete a Read-A-Thon all the way through. But I love supporting them. I love all the energy around them. I love the community that every one of them creates. And I have to applaud all of the thought that goes into it by every one of its creators. And it's always great because it gets me thinking how special a month can be. So when I went out and I kind of went, November Read-A-Thons, one of the first things that came up, or that I was very fortunate to find, was a young lady who has created a list of all the Read-A-Thons that are going on in Booktube. Now, I'm going to use that term all because I can't imagine she's gotten every single one, but she's done pretty well. She found 17 of them. If you need more than that, ooh, bless your heart. That's all I can say. But 17 different Read-A-Thons here in November. Now, I'm only going to be nodding to 4 of those, but it was a lot of fun reading through. It is pages with page, information down below. I will link that YouTube video for yourself, for you to go out and enjoy. She does a really interesting Excel spreadsheet to help you kind of keep track of all the things that you're reading for different Read-A-Thons. Very interesting. Go out, take a look at that. Make sure you open up her show notes because there is so much information in those show notes. It's amazing. So let's get on with kind of what I'm talking about. So typically for a TBR for me, you will see 9 books that are of ones that I would be choosing from to read. They're usually off of my bookshelves. Since moving into the 1 bedroom, they've now moved to more of an electronic version. But this month is a little bit different. As I have said before, I only usually get through, on average, 3 books a month. Last month was 4 books, and I'm hoping for the same this month. And all 4 of my books are kind of what I guess you would call obligatory reads. I have an obligation to reading them. Sounds really negative when you put it that way, but I'm really excited about them. And the reason they're obligatory is that either they've come from Netgalley and I need to get the review done prior to the end of the month, or it's a buddy read, which I've agreed with another person to read. In this case, it's Reads and Eats as always, Miss Fiona. And in the other case, it is a book club that I'm a part of, which is the Mystery Book Club, which Kate Howe is hosting. I'm going to try to find out as much information of how you can get in contact with Kate about that, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. But let's talk about the 4 Thons that I'm nodding to. The first one I want to talk about is a Netgalley November. Now, this is hosted by Brianna, Margaret, Christine, and Kathy. I have all their announcement videos down below. They all have YouTube channels, and they have prompts But their whole point of this particular readathon is to help those of us who are on Netgalley to get through all those arcs that we've been provided and that we said we would read and that we would post a review about. So they've got different prompts for each one. I think this is an excellent opportunity for any of you that are inundated with Netgalley TBR that you just haven't been able to get to find some inspiration. And you know, that is the biggest thing about Read-A-Thons, that inspiring us to read either what we already have or authors we haven't heard of or about certain subjects or genres we haven't ever read about. But the whole point is to read as many and get those reviews posted, because it gets your reading ratio up higher, and the higher your reading ratio, the more likely you're going to get the books that you're requesting. So again, really helpful Read-A-Thon. The next one is the Bloomin Read-A-Thon. Now this was one that I just love because it's all based around plants and the idea of plants and what plants need and everything else. And this is set up by Kirsty and Ali V. Now, if you want two bookends, yin and yangs, if you go to Kirsty's and you listen to her announcement, it is a cool laid back vibe. You've got candles going and it's really, really atmospheric in a gentle, calm way. But if you need some excitement, some caffeine pump, and to really hear somebody be excited about their readathon, you go see Ali V, because she is excited. So this readathon has a bingo card with it. So does the Netgalley one as well. And you can start playing book bingo using them. They have all of their prompts there. They even have it set up where they can tell you what each prompt is on their Instagram. So again, any one of those two, if you go to their announcement video, you're going to get all this information for you. I'm not going to go through them all, but I love some of the ideas, and I have some books which hit in this Read-A-Thon. Plus I love the name, a Bloomin Read-A-Thon. Next we have is Historithon. Now Historithon is a shorter one. It's only 10 days, the 1st of November to the 10th of November, and that is hosted by the Curly Head Reader and Lindsay's Little Library. They are doing it, this is historical fiction. They have 5 prompts for you to work with. They have announcement videos as well. This is a great one for you historical fiction buffs. I think they do one, I think this is like a mid-year one. I think they do one some other, I don't know what month. But for historical fiction, this is the Read-A-Thon for you. So if you have a few of those, go out and look and see what their prompts are. Might get you to pick up some off of your shelf that you've been meaning to read. The last one, and I'm going to say the grandmother of them all, the biggie, is the one that I always think about when it comes November, and that is Nonfiction November by a Bookclub. Again, information down below. I met Olive quite a few years ago. It was the first, I think she'd been on for over a year, and it was the year that she did this the first time, and she started Nonfiction November. And I am so impressed with how much time and effort and dedication she's shown, but how much an idea, it really shows what BookTube can do, because I think it's really put a highlight onto nonfiction, getting people to read nonfiction when they didn't think that they ever did. And you know, I was one of those. I believed I never read nonfiction. Well, I'm going to have a discussion about that a little bit later, because I had to rethink that. But as always, a Book Olive, she's got us thinking, and we've got Nonfiction November. So time to get on with, what are you really going to actually be reading, Rebecca? Well, as I said before, I have 2 books which I have to get read in November for Netgalley. And the first one is the one that I have to get done by the 27th of November. And by done, that's the publication date. I want to make sure I have my review up. I want to have my review written, and I want it all posted before that, so that if you're interested, you can go out on publication date and get this book. What book is it? Well, it actually hits 3 out of the 4 Read-A-Thon that I'm having a nod to. So the Read-A-Thons that it fills is the Netgalley November, which definitely, because it's a Netgalley review. It also hits historical fiction, the Historathon for historical fiction. And then the third one is the Bloomin Read-A-Thon. in that one of their prompts, which I thought was adorable, was water. And what they're saying is that it's about what author are you thirsty for more from? And this author, from day one when I read that first book, I have been just dying to read more. However, this author, Carlos Ruiz Zafron, and The Shadow of the Wind was the book that I first ever read of his. And it still to this day sticks with me so much. And it's one of my top books of all time. I did a review. I'll post that down below. It was one of my first ones years and years ago. I got really short hair and I look a lot younger. But still one of the most influential books and one of the #1 books that caused me to say, thank you, BookTube, because it was a BookTube darling. It's an older book. It is a series, but they stand alone. You do not have to read them. I actually have not read any more in the series, almost because I feel like I still have a little hangover from all those years ago from that book. But also, I was hoping more would be coming out, and I never want to really finish a series. And then, unfortunately, we've lost Carlos Ruiz Zafron. He no longer is alive. And really, there should be no other books, but there's one coming up in November. And what it is, though, before everybody gets really, really excited, it is a series of what feels like short stories and essays. So I read my first one today, and I have to tell you, that whole thirst quenching, I didn't realize how dehydrated for his writing I really was. The moment I started reading, I just felt like I was totally immersed in this book. I was all, just enjoying and savoring how he writes and how he has his people talk about and the atmosphere that you feel. I don't know, it just felt so familiar. And it was only 3 chapters. That thirst, I didn't know it was even there. So that would be for water on the Bloomin Read-A-Thon. The next one that I'm going to be picking up is for a book club. And the book club is the Mystery Book Club with Kate Howe that I talked about. And that is the first in the Ian Rutledge series, A Test of Wills. Now, this one, I don't know what it's going to apply to. I have a feeling it will definitely apply to historical fiction. I can't remember quite when it's set, and I don't want to go up and look at anything because I'm reading this book regardless. So I don't want to know too much. I think it's either after the First World War or after the Second World War. But I think it's going to hit a couple things. So it should hit Historithon. But beyond that, I don't know. And it's something that sometimes read-a-thons really get me is they kind of give you a description. So they might say it's a book with a beautiful cover, but that just tore your insides out. Well, you can't pick that ahead of time. That's got to kind of happen. I mean, how do you know a book's going to tear your insides out? Do we want a book to tear our insides out? Yeah. Yeah, we do. So I'm not really sure what all this one's going to fit, but that is for my book club. And then the third week of November, I'm going to be reading, The Little Book of Hygge. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. I'm going to say it about 6 different ways. At one point, I might just happen to say it correctly, but we all know what it is. It's that sense of cozy and safety and calm in your home, in your life, anything that can bring you that kind of feeling. This book was huge 3 years ago or so. Haven't had a chance to read it. I did recently read The Nordic Theory of Everything, and if you haven't read that book, I think everybody needs to read that book. Very, very fascinating. But this one's more about Hygge, and it's the one that started that whole kind of book revolution about it. And I'm going to be reading that with my book buddy, Fiona, over at Reads and Eats. And I was really thinking about how nonfiction will lend itself to so much good discussion, especially when we're talking about a concept and how to apply it. So I'm really looking forward to it. Almost like having the discussions that we used to have, in school whenever you were learning new things. So something to think about. Maybe for you book clubs out there, you might think about incorporating a nonfiction. Just because I think for stimulation of discussion, it could be quite interesting. And then the last book, and I'm not sure when I'm going to be reading this and how I'm going to get it in because it might come before and after, is yet another Netgalley. So it's a Netgalley. It would definitely go for the Netgalley November. It also should work for Historathon, but I don't think I'll be reading in those 10 days. But, again, a nod to the Historathon going on there. And let's see. Oh, and then it has the word dark in the title, and the cover is very dark. It's called A Dark Queen Watching, and there is an element, or one of the prompts is dark, for the Bloomin Read-A-Thon. So this one's another one that should possibly fit 3 of the 4. Oh, and Hygge, we all know, is going to be a nonfiction for my nonfiction November. So this one is based in 1471. It focuses around Margaret Beaufort. So therefore it's a medieval historical fiction novel. And I don't know a whole lot about that period as far as the history. I'm learning more. I'm reading a lot more. I really like reading about that period. I just finished a burnable book. So this was Edward of York is on the English throne, and let's see, and then Henry Tudor is exiled to Brittany. So it's a mystery, historical fiction, medieval. So looking forward to that. So those are the books that I have planned for November. So I was going to include today a discussion about my nonfiction November and kind of some thoughts. And the biggest one is that whole idea about how I consume nonfiction versus fiction. And you know what? I've decided I don't want to put this in this video. This is all about my TBR, what I'm planning on, but I would like to have a discussion. I think November is a perfect time to have it about nonfiction and the consumption of it, and how come we think we may not read much when in fact we do. So I'll be doing that video in a little while, going over what I'm currently reading in my nonfiction window. The Hygge one will definitely be finished this month because that is a buddy read, and that will be my nod to nonfiction November. So let me know what you're nodding to, or are you fully engaged and going to be able to any one of these read-a-thons? Have you heard of all of them? And if so, are you participating in all of them, or are you participating in something else? Because this seems to be the height of the season, though I've already started hearing about December read-a-thons. So everybody's really excited to get those communities strong and going. So I'd love to know what you're reading. And if you've read anything that I'm going to be reading, or have you read even Carlos Ruiz Zafron's, any of his books? And who's an author that you are just thirsty for additional works from? That's a great question. All right, well, go think that. Let me know in the comments down below. And remember, always keep turning those pages. Bye for now. Or exposing you, or getting you to expose yourself to. Okay, yeah, it's a lot of exposing. Anyway,